Today, I asked a question to Stockfish, and it was, what is the best chess opening? His reply at the depth of 30 was the Spanish. So in this video, I'm showing you my preparation after years of playing this opening in both online and OTB classical chess. Have fun. The idea of the Spanish is that after attacking the pawn on e5, we attack the piece that protects the pawn on e5, the knight, with our bishop. But be careful, because after the move a6, you cannot take the knight and then take on e5, winning a pawn, because there would be the strong queen d4 attacking the knight and the pawn at the same time. And after knight f3, black is taking back a pawn with check and gets a good position. Here we just go back with our bishop, and after knight f6, we castle. Now you might say, oh no, my pawn on e4. Yes, it can be captured. This leads to the open Spanish. But don't worry, you will capture the pawn on e5 a few moves later. You play here the move d4, and here black cannot really take on d4. Now remember, if you move rook e1, attacking the knight, d5 is forced. Knight take d4. Here black cannot play passive, because if he just protects the knight on c6, you play the move f3 and you win the knight on e4. So black here needs to play active, bishop d6, and after knight takes c6, bishop take h2. This is a sneaky move. You need to remember to move your king on h1, hiding behind your bishop. And after queen h4, the move strong is rook take e4 check. Important to remember, after d take e4, you have another move very strong, queen d8. It would be mate if the queen couldn't capture, but that's possible. And after knight take d8 check, the king takes and we capture the bishop on h2. Now we reach a position where white has two pieces in exchange of a rook and two pawns. But white has a much better position. Look at all black pieces, they are all sleeping on the starting square. The black king is stuck in the middle of the board, and with white we will have an easy way to go on. Knight c3, attacking the knight on e4, bishop on f4, bishop on g5. This rook will go on d1 or on e1, and white is just much better here. So, at this position, e take d4 is not really a good move, and the main move is b5, attacking our bishop. Bishop goes back, d5, fighting for the center. And now we take back our pawn, d take e5. Equal material. As I said, don't worry, it's not a gambit. Bishop e6, protecting the pawn on d5. And now you need to remember the move c3. The idea of this move is that we want to make some space for the bishop on c2. Bishop c5, the natural way to develop for black. Knight on d2. If the knight cannot go anymore on c3, of course the knight goes on d2. And very typically in the Spanish, that knight goes there. After castle, the strong move for white here is bishop c2. And now, if black tries to protect it in any way, we get a clearly better position. For example, after the move bishop f5, we can go on with knight on b3, and then eventually we will bring a strong knight on d4. In this position, only move for black is to take on f2. And after rook take, bishop take, king takes, f6, you need to go back with your king. And after f take e5, knight f1, we get a position where white has two pieces in exchange of a rook and two central pawns. Reason one here, with white, you need to be careful how to play. White is slightly better, but you need to know what is the plan. How is white going to bring back all the pieces? And a very important maneuver is bishop g5, bishop h4, and bishop on g3. This bishop on h3 is doing a very strong thing, attacking the pawn on e5. Remember, these pawns in the center are very strong as long as they are next to each other, because like this they are controlling all the square in front of them. But as soon as one of them is being pushed, then all the square around will be weak. For example, if the move e4 would happen here, this would be very bad for black. Look at all these squares. They're all weak and they are perfect spots for white pieces. That's all you need to know for knight take e4, the open Spanish. Now let's move to bishop e7. The main line of the Spanish leads to the so-called closed Spanish. Rook e1, you're protecting the pawn, and now black needs to act carefully. If you just go for castle, now you can take on c6 and take the pawn on e5. You are a pawn out, because after queen d4, you are going to go with your knight back on f3. You are attacking the queen, and the rook is protecting your pawn, so queen take e4 is no longer possible. That's why after rook e1, black needs to play the move b5. You go back with your bishop, and now there are two possibilities: the move e6 and the move castle. Let's start with the move castle. This move could lead to a very strong gambit for black that we will try to avoid. It's called the Marshall gambit, and it goes with the move e5. After e take d5, knight take d5, white is capturing a pawn in the center, but now black might get a very strong initiative after the move c6, protecting the knight, d4, bishop d6, attacking the rook goes back, and queen on h4. I suggest not to challenge the Marshall gambit because black gets really a very strong attack. It's playable for white, but many lines just leads to a draw. And if white doesn't know enough, you could really get hurt here. That's why in this position, my suggestion is to go immediately for the center with the move d4. A very good news is that you will be able to play the same line also against the main move d6 in this position. Because here, if black just plays the move d6, you will play the move c3 and you will reach the same position as the main line. We will see it later. Here black gets also an additional option, and is to take with the knight on d4. Attention here, you don't want to capture immediately everything on d4. You don't want to take with the queen here, because unfortunately after the move c5, the queen has to retreat, and c4, your bishop is dead on b3. Don't get your bishop trapped, and after e take d4, you push the pawn on e5. You must say, wait, what? What is the idea? And the sense is that after queen d4, c5, you have the move queen e4. Attacking the rook, black needs to use the tempo to move it. Then you can play the move c3, giving some space to your bishop. Anyway, in this position, I don't suggest you to capture immediately the pawn, but to go for something even better. And it goes with the move c3. It looks like a sacrifice, because after the move d takes c3, knight takes c3, white is actually a pawn down, but white gets a very strong initiative. After d3, queen f3, you're attacking the rook on a8, and the idea here for white to go for a very quick development. Bishop f4, knight f5, rook a d1. All white pieces are so active. Instead, look at the black pieces. They're all very passive and stuck behind. The best approach for black here is to play the move c5, and after c take d4, to go with the move c4. If black capture here the pawn on d4, you get the same good position with a great development without giving away a pawn. So c4, best for black. Bishop c2, d5. Now black is fighting for the center. You play knight c3, and you get here a very nice, pleasant, slightly better position. Remember the strong idea of knight e2, knight g3? The knight is very typical to go towards g3 in the Spanish. The idea is that from this square on g3, the knight might jump further on f5. And from f5, the knight is attacking the vulnerable square on g7. So the idea is very aggressive, attack the black king. Now we are fully ready to go into the main line, the move e6. We will still play the move c3, and after castle, d4. So you can see this is the same position that we can reach if black starts with the move castle first. d4 is not really the main move here, but is very strong. The main move for white here would be the move h3, because white wants to avoid the bishop to go on g4. But we don't care. We play the move d4 and we allow the bishop to go on g4. Here we play the move d5, attacking the knight, and the knight mostly goes on a5, attacking our bishop. We don't want to exchange our strong bishop for the knight, so always try to keep that bishop in the Spanish. Bishop on c2. c6, attacking the center. And now we ask a big question to the bishop on g4. Where are you going? There are a few options here. Let's start with bishop take f3. The idea of this move is that black might maneuver the knight towards b6 in order to capture the pawn on d5. White effectively lost a piece, but after knight g3, we have an amazing compensation. This position, according to the engine, is better for white. This means that we have full compensation for the pawn. We will go on with knight on f5, bishop on g5, and rook on d1. Look at this. We will have two strong rook on the open file at the center of the board. White has a great position. If this video hits 250 likes, I will make another video about 5 great victory for white in the Spanish, so that you can learn even more the plans, the idea in the middle game. Another option here for black is to retreat the bishop on h5. Here we are still very happy with white. We take the pawn on c6, and usually in this structure black is not capturing with the knight, but the knight here is a bit passive because he cannot really go anywhere. So black prefers to go with the queen on c7 to eventually capture with the queen. We keep going with our typical maneuver with the knight towards g3. And here white gets so many nice plans. Knight h4, f5. We want to bring a knight on f5, and if bishop takes, we are ready to capture with the other knight. Also very good for white is to go on with h4, h5, trying to attack the bishop on g6. And don't forget that usually in the Spanish, you want to attack on both sides. So always a typical move is to play a4, attacking at the same time on the queen side and king side. This bishop here is particularly bad because he's stuck to protect the king side and he cannot do anything on the queen side. So keep a flexible approach and attack on both sides. Another option is in this position to go with the bishop on d7. This is not really good because you get an amazing move here. I'm always excited to play this, is knight take e5. Seems like, what? You are giving away a knight, but after d take e5, you have d6, blocking the bishop on e7. The bishop is lost, you will win the bishop. Actually, you didn't gain material, but you won the bishop pair. So you will have two strong, amazing bishop there, which are very good, perform very well in open position, like the Spanish. Last but not least, in this position, we will go into the main line. You might be surprised, but the main move here is to go with your bishop back home, bishop c8. Now, after a few standard moves, queen c7, we go with the knight, we reach a position where you need to know the typical plans and enjoy a slightly better position for white. You always want to go with the knight on g3. You might want the help of this knight to go on h4 and eventually on f5. This queen gets an amazing spot on g3. Don't forget to go for a possible a4 to attack also on the queen side. What about the bishop on c1? This bishop sometimes goes on g5, sometimes might even go towards b2 with the move b3, bishop b2. Generally, this bishop is flexible, can have different destinations. We are not yet finished. We need to see another defense against the Spanish, the Berlin. This is played a lot by all the top GMs like Carson against the Spanish and leads to a very interesting endgame. After the move castle, black captured the pawn. We go for the center, very similar to the variation in the open Spanish. Now black plays the move knight d6, attacking our bishop. We take the knight, pawn takes back, we take on e5, attacking the knight, knight needs to move, we exchange the queen, king takes, and knight c3. This position, we get an endgame. The queen got exchanged. What are the differences? Two disadvantages for black. The weaker pawn structure due to this double pawn, and the king stuck at the middle of the board. The advantage for black is having the bishop pair here. So how to play this with white? Ideally, we would like to remove the advantage for white. So we want to exchange one of our knight for a bishop. Also, we have a pawn majority on the king side. We have 4 pawns against 3. So we would like to push these pawns in order to create a pass pawn and promote this pass pawn. Let's see an example how the game could go on. Bishop e7, h3, preparing the move g4. We really want to keep as much space as possible. Black tries to block the plan with the typical h5. In this position, try to remember a very nice idea. Knight on e2. The idea is that, of course, if the bishop goes on e6, we go with the knight on f4 and we try to exchange the bishop pair. Additionally, if the king just moves away, we take, and the pawn on e6 would also be very weak. So usually black here tries to avoid the exchange, plays a waiting move like king e8, and we go on with bishop g5. We are always very happy to exchange one of the two bishops, and black would like to avoid it, plays bishop e6. We go with the knight on f4, bishop d5. Now we take, even if the pawn structure now is safer, but after rook a d1, let's not forget that black still has the problem of the king stuck in the middle of the board. In this position, the main move for black to try to avoid white plans is knight on h4. The game could go on with knight take, bishop takes, rook on e1, king goes on e8, towards security, bishop on f4, bishop e6, knight e4, attacking the bishop, and white get a slightly better position, typical plan expansion on the king side, pushing the pawns, and always try to exchange one of the two bishops in order to remove the bishop pair for black. That's all for the Spanish. This is an opening that you can use all the time. It's a lifetime repertoire. Make sure to like the video. Don't forget 250 likes for another video about top 5 games with the Spanish. Subscribe to the channel if you still didn't. And leave me a comment. Let me know if you like this video, if you have any doubt. See you next time.